Over to you, Matt. Off you go.
Thank you very much, Peter. Good morning, everybody. So this Connect session is all about how to reduce the chances of being hacked in a modern online world. And it's me putting it together when I had the opportunity to do Tech Monthly. One of the key messages I like to get out there is that you can be safe and secure, or it's, there's malicious people out there trying to hack and trying to get access and leverage and use it to try and get money, or try and use it to disrupt. But there are certain things you can do to make it more difficult for them, to the point where they'll probably just move on and choose somebody else. And this is the concepts I go through here are designed to, they're fundamental stuff. It's they're relatively easy to implement, low cost to implement. I'd say low to no cost, to be honest, because a lot of them there is no direct cost associated with. So what I'm trying to give back to everybody here is this some easy things to do that will make you more secure. So let's go into it. So the first point, and it always has to start here really, because passwords are the first entry point. Okay. Ultimately, I think passwords are going to get eliminated over the years, and it's become going to be more of a biometric sort of authentication, more of a biometric, like a fingerprint or a face, that's going to, much like your phones. Phones are ahead of the curve, really. When you log into a Windows PC or a Mac, most of the time it's passworded, but I think that will change. But for now, while it's still in huge force, and these are the quick fix to actually make it so it's more difficult to guess, for them to gain access to an account. So I'm going to give a couple of examples of some good passwords and some bad passwords, but complexity and length are the two big things here. So length, I like to aim for about 15 characters. Most most sort of complexity requirements will tell you to go over 8 or make you go over 8 characters, but I like to aim bigger, 15. Literally the length that it goes makes the possibilities go from thousands to millions and billions and so forth. And it just makes the process of it being breached significantly harder. So I like to aim for 15, but that can be quite difficult to remember. So I've got a couple of techniques that I use to make passwords both memorable and long, and obviously have the complexity of capital letters, symbols, numbers, etc., etc., etc. So, quick example of some bad passwords. If I can actually flip to the next slide. There you go. So this, if your passwords are anything like this, you are on my naughty list. Okay. So top one, password 123, exclamation mark. It takes some of the fundamentals of a capital letter, a symbol, numbers, but so many people have either password or password 123 or any combination of that, or password with a 0 as the O. That's like top level. That's the first thing. Every instance of the word password is put into a password sort of hacking system or generator. They're all in there, every version of it as well, you'd expect. So if your password is that, you're asking for trouble. Anything that also incorporates either your business name, your name, your date of birth, or something that you're into, or quite publicly into as well. So if it was Matt loves MMA, and I've got MMA all over my Facebook and LinkedIn, if somebody did get to that and then think, actually, I'm going to try, they saw my account, that I'm going to guess what his password is, and they put MMA into a generator, it wouldn't take long to get to. So anything that involves, and in this case, I put Clouds Top Tech for my business, I put Crumpinator, Matt, and then my birthday. It's all stuff which is just easily guessable, or can be generated quite quickly. They've got some length. They're not like the worst case scenario passwords, but most sort of systems these days won't let you put anything that's under 8 characters anyway. So these are some ideas, some bad ones. And hopefully now we're going to go into, the safe list, or how I like to structure certain passwords. So the classic one I do is two random words, some numbers in between, some numbers in between, numbers at the end, and a symbol. Now, in this case, usually when I have to come up with a password, I'll just look around, and like now I'll go, for example, water 45, desk 32, exclamation mark. So that format, all I've got to remember is that I've used the word water and desk, and there's a couple of number scenarios, like in this case on the yellow door, 33 and 66. Actually quite easy to remember once you've done it a couple of times, and it's got the length there, it's got the mix of capitals, the numbers, the symbol, but then you can play with it a little bit more. Put symbols at the start, put capitals at the end. So in this one, my fuzzy 55 pickles, the capital is actually at the end and at the start. So I've sort of like encapsulated it in capitals and in a double exclamation mark front and back. My blue buffalo bags, again, 3 words this time, without the symbols without the numbers in between, but a number at the end and a star just to mix it up. Or paint your pants, I've done it again. So these are examples. You are free to use these if you wish, or come up with your own. To take a couple of words, 3 words even, mix in, treat it a little bit random. But the other thing to say here, and I'll mention it again in a minute, is if you've got quite a few online identities, and that's what I'm going to go into next, a password manager, a paid password manager, they're usually around between £2 and £3 a month, can store all of your passwords. You can even have family ones that will store your family's passwords if you were either looking after your nan or your mom or anything like that, or your even siblings, or children. Another one, if you want, there are password Dashlane. Is that I can see John has mentioned Dashlane. I'm assuming that's a password manager. I'm going to go next because password managers can make life a lot easier if you've got multiple ones to remember and you wanted to store them somewhere, and then you don't have to necessarily insert them. Your password manager can do that for you. The next point, so we've talked about passwords, is online identities. And what do I mean by that? So everybody has multiple online identities. You have a Facebook account, maybe. You have a LinkedIn account. You have an eBay. You have an Amazon. You have an insert. You probably, if you actually counted them up on your fingers or in a document as to how many you actually had, don't put them in a document. You probably have 10, 20, 30, maybe even more, depending on your industry, versions of you with a username and a password. So if I, like here in this graphic, you can see it's one person, your identity, you've got that in this case, an eBay, a PayPal, an online store, maybe Next, maybe Boots, maybe whichever. And then you've got an electricity, then bank, there's so many. A couple of tips on this, okay? Some are going to be higher priority than others. So if I bring these up on here, some are, I would consider high risk, like your bank, like anything that's going to have confidential stuff in a business account. So obviously the golden rule is the ones that are higher risk, you want to make sure you're more secure with, like your bank. And what I usually try to do is separate personal and business. So for example, if you're a business owner or you're a part of a business, make sure that password and email address even isn't then used for your Netflix account. Because if you've got the same sort of email address, and because it's most usernames are email addresses these days, if you're using a business email address and your business password on a Netflix account, if that gets compromised, what they're going to do, they're going to obviously try Microsoft, Google, they're going to move laterally, which is what a lot of hacking is these days. They get one password, they've got a hit, and then they're like, right, what else can that get us into? And then can they get into the PC? They will try and move laterally, which is why it's good to have different combinations of username and passwords, or email addresses and passwords, but try and separate the personal ones from the business and the high risk ones from the not. And again, this is the sort of thing a password manager can be brilliant for, because you can have, it will store those in my Gmail account for this account is that, my Microsoft 365 account is that, put them in the manager, it categorizes them for you. And obviously a lot of web browsers do that these days, like Google Chrome and Microsoft Edge, they do that for you. I'd question whether it's the safest place to put them, because if you ever got compromised and then they gained access to that, then you've basically given them a list of all of your identities. So that's a couple of core principles on your identity. You're going to have lots, prioritize them. Don't cross-contaminate important same credentials or same password across key like bank, business account, etc., etc. which gets us into probably one of the most important ones. And it's got a couple of names. I call it MFA. It's multi-factor authentication. It stands for 2FA in Google world, two-step verification, two-factor authentication. They're all the same, exactly the same thing. It is using an additional method to authenticate, which is, or verify. And that just means that it's adding an extra step. You've got your email, you've got your username or email address, you've got your password. Now you've got to prove you are who you are. And that's either a text to your phone you may have seen on your bank, or in a lot of cases, an app. So in Google and Microsoft, which are the main couple, I would say, you've got the Microsoft Authenticator or the Google Authenticator, a literal app you install on your phone or tablet, and then it will either challenge, you can either set it to challenge you for an approve notice like this, where this is actually the Microsoft one, where it comes up on your screen, it's challenged you, you click approve, put your fingerprint on, or let it see your face. You've got the biometric, you've tapped it, you don't need to remember any codes, and done. And you've authenticated. And similarly, this is the Google one, where it sort of does a code cycle every 20 or 30 seconds. And then when you actually are prompted to do that extra step, you look at the code on the screen, then you type it into the computer, and then it allows you to log in. But it's that extra step of verification and proving who you are. It's significantly more difficult to hack somebody's phone to get onto their app, their authenticator, and simultaneously get onto their online account. It's just the figure that they release is 99%. It prevents 99% of hacks if you've got MFA or 2FA set up. You can hack. This is obviously per account as well. Your Netflix account should have the option to have MFA on. Your Microsoft account, your Google account, you need to look at this on a per account basis. And obviously, based on what I said before, your higher priority ones or your higher risk ones, make sure at bare minimum those ones are covered, because this is a huge bump. No cost to download these apps, and it can make the difference. Obviously, if any form of administrator account or a gain privilege account, absolutely, this is a must for me. It's something I help my customers with. I make sure that these are all on and enforced, because it's a free way to make things so much more secure. So that was number 3. We've got 5 to go through. Number 4 being trust. Trust works in quite a few ways, actually. I'm going to look at trust as in the phishing. So when people try and steal your credentials. There's also the trust aspect in a business of who has access to what, information theft, malicious activity, or there's that element of this as well. And the general rule of thumb is don't trust anything or anyone. Give it least permission. Give them access, ability to do their work. If they need elevation, if they need extra access, do it on a set timed period and then revoke it, so that everybody can do their job without having access to the whole spectrum or having more permission than they need. But the element I want to focus on this is phishing, because it is the thing that so many people can fall for. I'm going to be honest, I've never clicked it, but I've come close. Okay. It's so easy to get caught out. When you get the logo, and you'll see one in a minute, I've got of an email, or when you get a text from the bank that you bank with, and it's like, click this link, your account needs resetting, or there's been a problem. It's so tempting. You're almost drawn to click it. And that's what they're designed for. You click it, what will probably happen is it'll take you to a login screen that looks immaculate, like it's the right one. And then you'll put your credentials in, boom, you've just given your credentials away. This thing alone captures so many people. Another example, get COVID, one that's more recent, and this sort of thing can trap people. And I've shown here one's a scam, one's real, and it all comes down to the actual website that if it's forcing you to go to. Sometimes you can disguise a link, and it can be viewed as something, but it'll take you somewhere completely else. somewhere completely elsewhere. Or, so always pay attention to what it's trying to get you to do. And do you even need to click it? Is this something that you know, if it's a bank thing, if it's a coronavirus thing, there's gonna be, you could go to the gov.uk website, log in as yourself, outside of clicking that link, and check yourself, or log into your bank without clicking anything on this. So there's ways to check without having to actually being forced to do what they say. And the general rule of thumb is, if in doubt, don't do anything. Don't click it, or even ask a friend. And here's another example, and this one I can give a couple of pointers on. So response required. This is obviously a fake email. They've put the subject response required. It looks well written. It's they've got you. They're getting to you either log in or go to the resolution center. Couple of giveaways, because they can make it look pretty. You can make you can spend a lot of time. I could make that and send it to somebody, and it would look like it was almost come from PayPal. And you can even, their username on the I don't know if I can, I'm not going to be able to highlight it, I don't think, but if you look at the top on their email address, you got service@intl.paypal.com or service.paypal spelt weird at outlook.com. The usual thing to look out for is the domain name, which is the last bit of the email, where it's coming from. Because obviously paypal.com or paypal.co.uk would be their domain. If it's coming from Outlook or Microsoft or Gmail or Google or anything like, or Hotmail, it's a no. It's just, it's not right. Anyway, they'll sometimes try and trick or you can get it if it's been spoofed to come from the domain, but that's from like an internal hack, and then they've pushed something out. The general rule of thumb is read it, see if most of them aren't written well, actually, and you can kind of tell immediately, but the email address it comes from, that can sometimes be masked as well. It might say from PayPal, but when you hover over it, it will actually display that it's the proper link or URL or email address that it's from. So always, my advice here is trust nothing, zero trust. Don't trust anything that comes in that's getting you to click something that seems out of the ordinary. It probably is out of the ordinary because it's likely to be a scam. And if you assume that every email, every link and everything that's trying to get you, then it's probably actually a safer way forward. And this brings me on to my last one. So that's it for trust. PC security. Probably it's an easy one to do. It's a one that a lot of people neglect. And the simple tips I've got on here are about updates, antivirus, and web browsing. They're the big three. Make sure your PC is up to date. Now, a lot of people don't reboot. If it's a laptop, most people don't reboot it. Even a PC, they'll lock it, walk away. So rebooting actually can be months or weeks before it happens in a lot of cases, and their updates just sit there, not going on. What I would advise people to do is to put either, if you're haven't got a managed service from your IT provider, to schedule a time every Friday at 4 o'clock, you're going to run the updates, and put it in your diary as a calendar entry or something. Do something to mean that each week you're checking that the updates have gone onto your computer, because the second they go out of date, the risk factor goes up. That's the same with if you're still on Windows XP or Windows 7, you're asking for trouble, because the second the patches stop, that version then becomes the final version, and all they need to do is find an exploit for it, and it's a cat and mouse game, hacking and who gets the upper edge this month and next month. It's just it's a constant to and fro. And the second the updates stop, or somebody doesn't put an update on their PC, you're just increasing the likelihood of a problem. Antivirus, I would advise AVG free is probably better than nothing. You do get an inbuilt one into Microsoft, into most people on Windows, which is the Defender. Don't know what the Mac equivalent is. Macs work on a completely different security model anyway. My advice, again, particularly if you're in a business setting, would be to get a proper business antivirus, a paid one. They're not that expensive. I think on average, £25 per user per year. So you're a couple of pounds a month again. So usually they want you to pay up front. So if you've got a 10 user site, it might be £250, but that's them covered for the year. So again, factoring it down, a couple of pounds a month, it actually works out to per person. And the last tip I would say is web browsing. Just be careful, because the primary two ways you're going to get caught out. So most threats in a business are the actual people, for one, and someone clicking a link or opening something they shouldn't, or going on a website they shouldn't be going on, or downloading something they shouldn't. People are usually going to be the entry point for a threat coming in. And that boils down to either usually email and web browsing. Those are the two ones. Either something coming in and you click, or you go somewhere and you go to a link that you shouldn't have, and it down, because a lot of websites you go to it and it just auto downloads something. Then if you click run, well then it's game over. So be mindful when you're browsing, which sites you're going to, what links you're clicking on, because again, this is the thing that can catch a lot of people out. I could probably do a whole session on web browsing in itself. But yeah, those are my main 5 points. I guess a recap would be: use strong passwords, manage your online identities, particularly the high risk ones, the ones where there's sensitive information or access to financial information. MFA, 2FA, why wouldn't you? It's free. It adds that layer of security there. Trust nothing, just particularly links. And when you're being told to go somewhere and check something, most of the time your bank aren't going to tell you to click this link and log in and do stuff. It just doesn't usually work that way. Keep your PC secure. Do updates. They're there for a reason. A lot of them are security patches. And last one, stay safe online, kids. And that's it for me and this presentation. So hopefully, I've no idea what that was on time. Sorry, Peter, if I've rambled on way too long. But hopefully that gives you some tips about staying safe online. It's a modern online world these days. Most servers and solutions are cloud-based. So your identity is is what you need to protect. And your online presence and online accounts are your identity in this case. So keep them safe, keep them secure, take the time to get these things set up properly. Thank you.
Thanks, Matt. And you've done the screen, which is brilliant. So hold on just a second. I'm going to just stop recording.